Alan Wake is one of those unique experiences, and there's nothing quite like it. But at the same time, taking a lot of inspiration from Stephen King and The Twilight Zone and many other 80s and 90s horror, while still staying a traditional story about light fighting darkness. In saying that, it never feels like a rip-off of anything, standing on its own 2 feet both in story and as a video game. This game came out in 2010 and I played it twice back then. There is a remastered version out now, but I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to 2010 and play this the right way. I wondered though if it would hold up. Would I still remember this game as fondly as I did back then? Let's find out. But before we get into this, we gotta move a few things. I actually totally forgot how big this power cord was, and that you had to buy one of these if you actually wanted to connect to the internet wirelessly. And can you believe that my childhood memories are stored on a 60GB hard drive? Now, I do have a reason that I want to play it on the 360, and bear with me while I go through my nostalgia here. But this is the Alan Wake Collector's Edition, and I am so glad that I picked this up, because I actually had no idea what Alan Wake was, but I saw this Collector's Edition at JB Hi-Fi, and it was the last one, and I picked it up. So it comes with 3 things: the game obviously, a bonus disc as well as a music disc and a book. So let's take a quick look at these. You can see here that you're not allowed to make illegal copies of this disc, and this is just the bonus disc. However, on the music disc it does not have that written on there, so I don't know, maybe you can make illegal copies of it. I do apologise for digressing, however I got this one last thing I want to show you. This is the Alan Wake keyring. It's actually a torch, but I've lost the top of it. And yeah, I've had this for absolutely years. I used to have it on my keyring, I think, until around 2019. I ended up taking it off because yeah, it's so beaten up. But this wasn't even supposed to come with the game that I ordered, but they gave it to me because it was the last one, so that was pretty awesome. I've got one last thing I want to show you here, and then I promise we'll get into the game. So, do you guys remember this? Xbox had a little avatar that you could customize here, and I absolutely adore this, and I'm so glad that it's still here after all these years. I actually updated and it disappeared, and then I updated Xbox Live, logged back in, and got him back, so I couldn't be happier. I was really upset that he was gone, and that is because I actually have an Alan Wake jacket and scarf on. And I can't remember how I got this. I definitely didn't buy it. I never bought anything back then on the Xbox Live store, but I think I got it when I finished the game. I could be wrong, but if somebody knows, let me know down below in the comments, please. But anyway, I've delayed this long enough. Let's actually get into Alan Wake and review this game. I'd be remiss if we didn't start with the story here, and the story starts us off going into the town of Bright Falls. Our protagonist, Alan Wake, a famous writer, has not been able to write a single word in 2 years. With his wife Alice, they hope to escape to the small country town and just forget for a while, or at least Alan does. Upon getting to their cabin, Alice reveals that she has brought him a typewriter, and that she has been in contact with the local shrink that she thinks could help him. Alan does not take this well, pushing Alice to one side and storming out of the cabin. As he tries to collect himself, he hears screams from behind him, coming from inside, and runs back. He sees that Alice has fallen into the lake below and dives in after her. Then we cut to him waking up in a car crash 1 week after he lost Alice, also finding pages to a manuscript he has written but has no memory of. In this short amount of time we have learnt so much, and it never feels overwhelming, it feels very natural. The characters are almost cartoonish in their demeanour and behaviour, an elderly woman clutches a lamp telling you to be careful in the dark.
You got lucky this time, young man. You can hurt yourself in the dark.
A local fan screams as you walk into the cafe she works at, having a cardboard cutout of Alan beside her.
Oh, God! I am your biggest fan. I know people say that all the time, but I really am.
I'm glad to hear that.
And then there's possibly the most two unforgettable characters. We actually have the two Norse gods, Thorn and Odin here.
Coconut! Number 6 in the jukebox. I'm in the coconut. Drink them both up.
Shut your mouth, you demented has-been. If I had my hammer, I'd shut it for you.
I beg your pardon.
But more about them later. Alice is the princess of the story, Alan's love and muse, and now she's been taken away. Like any traditional story, the hero must go and save her. Though here they have flipped it around slightly. When we first meet Alice, she is the one trying to help Alan, and he is the one that is reluctant to it. And she really wants to help him, like he has helped her through her unreasonable phobia of the dark. And then there's Alan. Alan is hot-headed, he's brash, he's arrogant, he only listens to himself. It makes for a interesting protagonist, and I feel if this were a TV show or movie, we wouldn't have much remorse for him, or sympathy for him. He is a pretty unlikable character. Being the character that we play through the game, we do feel a sense of connection with him, guiding him through this trouble that he now finds himself in, and battling what comes because of it, and watching him grow during this. The story in all aspects overshadows everything else because it is incredibly well written, but let's touch on the gameplay for a minute. For most of the time you'll find yourself traversing through many dark forests with a single flashlight in hand, and something interesting here is the camera. It doesn't follow the character, it actually follows where the light is being shone. So I thought that was really cool. This being a horror game, you don't find yourself in the most comfortable of places. Shadows are wrapped around trees, places are very dark and dimly lit, while wind rages through the trees, and if you're not careful, the shadows will jump out at you. In saying that, beams of light are very bright, and often light itself is a goal, whether it being a petrol station or a radio tower atop a hill that you must reach. And lamps are also save points, which is a very nice touch, though sometimes they often trick you. However, they always make the light point of where you're supposed to be going. You need to constantly keep moving through these dark woods, and there's always some sort of light force guiding your way. It's a really nice touch, and as that is kind of the whole story of the game, it really is incorporated well. And I gotta take my hat off to the game designers here. It would have been very easy to become lost and frustrated traversing through these dark places. However, with the light source constantly guiding your way, that never really happens, even when you head off the beaten track to find like a collectible or a secret weapon stash. You never get lost, and there's always a quick way of finding your way back to the path that you're supposed to be headed on. They also leave a trail of manuscript pages that come along quite often. Being a bright white page in the middle of the woods makes it easy to know where you're supposed to be headed. These manuscript pages also give you insights into the characters and also upcoming events, and that is really, really cool.
In the scene on the page, the hero was attacked by an axe murderer in the woods at night. Anybody there? Hey, you!
Phil!
There's been an accident. I need help. Listen,
Deposit.
I need to...
Premium cabins for rent in...
Oh, hell.
So yeah, just really well designed. I thought I'd mention that. While I've been talking about the light and dark design, let's talk about the graphics briefly. And I must say they do look a little bit dated, but I think they still hold up today, and it's still got a certain level of charm to it. I tried to remember what it was like when I first played it, and I do remember kind of being blown away by the lighting effects back in the day. Obviously we've got a lot better now. However, with the second game coming out, I'm glad that we can see they are blowing us away once more. And let's talk about the weapons you'll acquire along the way. Obviously you have your flashlight in one hand, and you'll have to use this to break the darkness around most enemies before you can actually hurt them. And to hurt them, they've equipped you with a trusty revolver, which is kind of like the default weapon. and as you progress through the levels you'll get more powerful things such as a shotgun, a hunting rifle, and also flares that can push back your enemies, while a flare gun can dispose of a heap of enemies all at once, as well as flash grenades. There's even higher levels of torches you can pick up in the later levels, and I love it when they give you this big boy towards the end. But as you get upgraded weapons, the enemies also become upgraded. You'll first start off with these lower level enemies that will throw things at you and also try and sneak around you. Their enemy's AI seems very smart. They always know where the light is and they'll try and sneak around you towards the back while you're dealing with one in front of you. It's very well thought out and I really appreciate this because it always keeps you on your toes. But from there you'll get some enemies that can run really fast. Also there's a few boss fights scattered throughout the levels where the darkness has taken over a character that you once knew. But as we progress we get these bigger enemies that will also charge at you, and once you get a few of these, it is quite hard to take them on. In the much later levels, objects will become no longer safe either, becoming wrapped in darkness and thrown at you like something out of a telekinesis horror movie. There's also these boss fights, and I'm not sure what to call them, but I've been referring to them as almost Dark Souls like boss fights. When these guys come out, you know that you're in trouble. And I want to make a comment about these enemies. I will say that none of them really feel like they overstep the line of the story of Alan Wake, and what I mean by that is it would have been very easy for them to put in scary creatures such as a giant or a spider or something, and they never do that. They never delve into that, making humans and inanimate objects the only monsters. It seems like there was a boundary that they set for themselves, and I really appreciate that because it makes these monsters feel grounded and not too far out of the realm of possibilities. Alright, so I want to head back to the story for a bit. As our story progresses along, we meet more characters, and one of my favourites, and I didn't think that I would find him as a favourite, that is Barry, Alan's agent. When he first appears, he's kind of like Alan. He's very unlikable and threatening that he's going to sue people, and even Alan admits that he thinks he's only there because he smells money. But as we go on, he becomes one of the more likable characters, becoming very reliable when things get tough, wrapping himself in lights to fight the darkness alongside Alan and his allies. He also makes some Lord of the Rings quotes which definitely help.
Did you call 911?
Guess that one saw the light. You didn't like that one? A tough audience. Well, I got plenty more.
What are the Christmas lights for?
Protection, man. Like garlic against vampires. See this headlamp? It's like a superpower. I can just look at one of those things and they die. It's my flaming eye of Mordor.
And now to a character that is the opposite of Barry, that is Detective Nightingale, and I really wish that they had fleshed out this character a lot more. He is a FBI agent who is sent after Alan. He is rude and obnoxious and nearly intoxicated all the time, firing off rounds willy-nilly. It's clear that he's actually going through something a lot like Alan, and I wish we could have seen a bit more of him. It just would have been a good look at what Alan can become if he wants to continue in his way of being frustrated and resentful. Only reading the book that comes with the collector's edition do you see the interviews that he's conducted with each of the town's members. He is drunk all the time and constantly rude to them. It gives you a much greater insight into him, and also a bunch of notes that he's taking throughout the investigation, tracking down Alan. He never refers to him as Alan or Wake. He only refers to him as our boy or another writer's name so he can be derogative towards him. And in the game, he never calls him Alan Wake. I was really left wondering why he had such a hate towards Alan, and I would have liked to have seen them have a much bigger clash because they kind of are the yin-yang to each other. As the story goes on, it becomes apparent that nobody can be trusted. The police want to lock you up, while others have their own agendas, and some straight out are working for the forces of darkness. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything or go through the whole story here, because if anybody is listening who hasn't played it, I hope that this is enough to encourage you to pick this up. But I am going to touch on a few of my favourite parts from this. One being when you are taken in by the shrink that Alice recommended you, Dr. Hartman. He has actually taken you hostage and he's not letting the police know that you're under his care. He tries to convince you this whole thing is just an episode and he's trying to help you get better, but seemingly he has a hidden reason behind his lies. You see other patients much madder than yourself.
We're actually making some progress with him. He works on video
Elbow
games.
strike.
It's trash, of course.
And the Anderson brothers are there too, Tor and Odin, and they're gonna help us get to my next favorite part. But before we get there, a storm rolls in over the Cauldron Lake Lodge, taking Hartman and turning the place into kind of like The Shining. Tor finds himself a real hammer and takes it to one of the staff members, enabling you to escape. Upon getting outside, you must run through a hedge maze. Much like The Shining, it seems like it was almost taken directly out of there, while also fighting staff members that have been taken over by darkness. From there, we head to my next favourite part, and I am glad and disappointed that I actually forgotten about this over the last 13 years that Alan Wake has been out. We head to the Andersons' farm, and it is completely covered in Viking memorabilia, from shields to Viking ships. Their house is a design of a Viking long haul, while they have their own concert stage with a dragon's head that spews flames. Upon this stage, you will fight waves of enemies while rock music blares and fireworks shoot up in every direction. It really reminds me of that scene out of Stranger Things with Eddie. It's truly an iconic scene and I can't believe that I forgot about it, but I am so happy that I got to re-experience it all again. And lastly, let's touch on the music. From the howling winds of the woods to the many loud bangs of gunfire, everything is on point, and as you get deeper into the game, the forests, they have many more layers to the sounds, building up the tension and fear, as well as a small list of licensed songs from David Bowie and my personal favourite, Coconut by Harry Nilsson. A lot of good times listening to that at my grandparents' house. I could honestly go on about Alan Wake forever, but let's wrap this up with my final thoughts. Alan Wake is one of those truly incredible games that is one of a kind. Even though it is heavily inspired by other things, it truly feels unique and its own. One of the things that I have liked to comment on is the recaps. When you load a save file, it recaps you, telling you what happened before so that you don't miss anything, just like a TV show would. And I really like that. There are a lot of things like this. It takes bits and pieces from so many things, and you would think it would not work if you blended all these things together, but here it all works perfectly. And with such a interesting, well-written story, a writer losing himself in his own head and his own writings, battling darkness, as well as a long list of well-designed characters and support casts that are unique and interesting, driving the story along, as well as setting it in a hidden town covered in mountains and forest, never knowing when danger might jump out at you and strike, while in the day the town feels homely and it would be a place that I'd love to visit and explore. It's a time capsule of a simpler time, and going back and replaying it on the 360 really feels like I've captured that. I am going to give this game a perfect score, a 10 out of 10. Whatever the price is, I truly believe that this is a unique experience you won't find anywhere else, that pushes the bounds of how a story can be told in a video game while being so creative, interesting and different, packing in characters and plot that all work perfectly together, plowing a beautiful line between too much and too little. If you haven't played this yet, I highly recommend doing so, though in saying that, I know this game won't be for everyone. If you enjoy story-driven games like The Last of Us and other ones, I think you will enjoy this one. This game comes in at around 9 or 10 hours, and I think if you played on easy mode you could probably smash it out in 7 or 8. Anyway, this has been my review of playing Alan Wake the right way. I'm River Raven, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. With the release of Alan Wake 2 and hearing all the good reviews, I'm very excited to see where the story takes us next. But before that, Alan Wake still has some more things to offer us. So please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.